Joining us right now, Fred Barnes, executive editor of the Weekly Standard, and of course, one of the Fox News All-Stars. Fred Barnes, great to have you here, sir.
Glad to be here.
So much to talk to you about. We want to get into Obamacare and the disaster there, and of course, I need to ask you about this year's NBA sleeper team, the Washington Wizards. But before we get to that, I want to reflect a little bit on 1 week ago today, Cuccinelli versus McAuliffe in Virginia. This whole war on women attack that McAuliffe waged against Cuccinelli that seemed to go unanswered for 6 months, where you actually had Virginian women thinking that Ken Cuccinelli, had he been elected, was going to take away the right to birth control in the Commonwealth. That was effective. You wrote about it at the Weekly Standard, and you have advice for Republicans running in the future. What is that advice?
Well, look, they're going to have to talk about these social issues involving women. You're going to have to talk about abortion if your view is that abortion should be illegal except in certain cases. You have to talk about that. The Republican idea was, look, we're going to try to impose a truce. We're not going to talk about it, so then the Democrats won't talk about it, and we'll basically have a truce. But it doesn't work that way. It meant Republicans didn't talk about these issues, defend themselves, or promote their ideas, but Democrats did, and the war on women, all those ads by the McAuliffe campaign just worked beautifully, just as the same war on women had been used by the Obama campaign in 2012, and Romney was pretty silent on it. It worked then, too.
Right, and it kept saying, Cuccinelli's too extreme for Virginia, but where was the ad that said Terry McAuliffe, who doesn't want to put any restrictions on abortion on demand, who apparently, according to the fact that he doesn't want to put any restrictions on it, would be okay with a woman choosing an abortion for gender selection?
Indeed.
Isn't that extreme? Where was the pushback? And are you suggesting that Republicans push back in that way and say, hey, we're not the extreme ones, you're the extreme ones?
Well, I think they have to, and there's no question about it. They have to do that, but they've been reluctant. It's not just in Virginia and not just in the presidential campaign last year. They've been reluctant across the country to do that, and Democrats now see correctly that they have a free shot here to make claims about Republicans and women and abortion and so on, and Republicans won't respond. And as we know, voters tend to believe things, charges that are not responded to or rebutted. So, look, Republicans need to go on offense on this issue, and they haven't done it, and we see the results.
It would appear that the Republicans have a really good issue, though, in Obamacare, despite the fact that Debbie Wasserman Schultz on the Sunday talk shows this weekend said that she believes Democrats, by the time we get to the midterm elections, will be able to run on Obamacare. What do you think about all that, Fred?
I think that she must have meant run away from Obamacare. That's the kind of bravado that just makes no sense at this stage. I mean, we just got some numbers yesterday that showed that by the projection was by the Obama administration that they'd sign up 500,000 people in the month of October. They've signed up about 40,000 under Obamacare. These numbers are really very, very telling. And look, the people who are the most worried are Democratic senators who voted for Obamacare who are up for re-election next year. And they're the ones that have been going to the White House and talking to the president. And so far, there have been basically no changes in the whole strategy of one. I'm sorry, go ahead.
How should Republicans handle this? Because there are those who say, just sit back. It's all going to come unraveled. And you're already clearly on record as being against it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Well, I think that works pretty well. I think, and at the moment, Brian, they don't really have to do anything. But next year, they're going to have to agree, and they don't agree on it now, on what is their alternative to Obamacare, because Obamacare being in so much trouble, you can't just sit by and say nothing forever, but right now you can get away with that.
Fred Barnes is our guest from the Weekly Standard, and Fred, you talked about those senators, those Democrats who were up for re-election in 2014. One of them, right here in Virginia, Mark Warner, and we unearthed a video. This is him talking on his YouTube channel to voters in Virginia in 2010, explaining his vote for Obamacare. Listen to this, Fred.
Okay.
Folks who say to me, hey, Senator, my health care plan's pretty good. Is health care reform going to change that? Let me make clear. I'm not going to support a health care reform plan that's going to take away health care that you've got right now or a health care plan that you like.
Meanwhile, I mean, that's the Obama broken promise right there. If you like your health insurance plan, you can keep it. Is Warner possibly vulnerable here, considering he trounced Gilmore 6 years ago?
Well, that's an interesting question. He's not regarded as someone in any trouble in 2014. The mainly it's the senators in Arkansas and Louisiana and Alaska and a few other states. But look, that can be used against him. And I think very strongly. We saw how effective the Obamacare issue was when Ken Cuccinelli in the governor's race used it in the last couple of weeks. And
right.
He couldn't even do anything on TV because he didn't have any money.
And McAuliffe was not one of the 60 senators that voted to make Obamacare the law. Warner was. You could argue he was the deciding vote.
Indeed. And look, here's the first thing we'll know whether this is to be taken seriously as an issue that can really affect Warner, and that is the kind of candidates who Republicans who start talking about, well, maybe I'll run against Warner. Right now, it looks like they don't have much of a
a bench
that really want to jump in the race. But if some well-known Republicans start thinking about that, well, then we'll have to think about Warner in a different light.
Real fast, there's some noise that Cuccinelli is being shopped around as the Republican candidate. Do you think that's a good idea?
Yeah, probably not when you've just lost a race, but he did use the Obamacare issue very effectively.
Yeah, almost closed the gap. That's right.
He closed the gap. But look, but we have to go back to this question: is Cuccinelli ready to combat the war on women and defend his own policies and attack his opponent is somebody who is extreme on abortion, say?
All right, Fred. Thanks for joining us, Fred Barnes. Oh, by the way, Wizards won back-to-back games and took the Thunder to overtime. Are you hopeful for the Wizards this year? I think they're a sleeper.
I'm very hopeful, and as long as they can keep people like Nene healthy and John Wall healthy, and look at Bradley Beal. He is now, at age 20, a star.
Yes, I have found the other Wizards fan in
There
Washington.
are two of you.
Fred Barnes, the Weekly Standard. Thanks, Fred.
All right, thanks, Fred.
Bye-bye.